Bigfoot does not exist.
We're flying into a hole in the sky. There's nothing I can do to stop it. It's sucking us in. The limits of the third dimension must be transcended by negating the forces of duality and ascending into unity.
The Creepy and Weird Podcast, brought to you by Hippie Steve.
Hard times, baby! Hard times! I wined and dined with kings and queens, but I slept in alleys and dined on pork and beans. Hard times, baby! I'm the American dream, dusty roads, baby! Welcome to Creepy and Weird. I am your host. I am the son of none, the king of the bum. Check your mind, be kind, and rewind. Yeah. Thank you for watching another episode of this podcast. My name is Hippie Steve. And yeah, without getting into the whole rigmarole, we're chugging along and trying to get the content out, and not doing as much as we want, but that's all I got to say about that for the time being. Let's just, keep on keeping on. That's all we can do. Me and B-Mac on the attack. He's over there. I think he might be eating some pork and beans, to be honest with you. I'm not quite sure. It's about all we could afford right now. Finances, we all know how it is. The hard times, baby. That's no joke. I'm a son of a plumber, baby. It's enough doing Dusty. But there's a reason why I talk about hard times in the beginning of this podcast. Because I've had this idea in my head for a while. I started studying the concept of Kali Yuga last year, actually. And I don't know what got me onto it. I think I might have watched an episode of Joe Rogan. He was saying, oh yeah, we're living in Kali Yuga, bro. So I'm like, all right, I'll check the Kali Yuga out and see what's going on. And started looking a little bit into it. Obviously, there's probably people here who don't know what Kali Yuga is. I will break it down. But looking into it, it was very interesting. And it was very weird because I had a dream. Last year, actually. Almost 1 year to the date. I'm going to talk about my dreams, folks. The American dream. I had a dream last year where I was on a frozen over lake, and there was like this, fishing cabin in the middle of this lake, and I'm about to go to it. And it's one of those ones where there's a hole in the middle of the shack. You can fish under the ice. I'm about to go into it, and all of a sudden the ice starts breaking up. And I'm in the middle of this freaking lake, and I'm freaking out. I'm going, what the hell? And all of a sudden, the words Kali Yuga came crashing out of the ice and flashed before my eyes. Now, I go to weekly therapy sessions, and I remember telling my therapist about this and not quite knowing what the hell it meant. And I've been doing dream analysis ever since and pontificating on what it can mean. And maybe that dream was doing a little bit of a foreshadowing of what's going on right now, because I feel like right now we're definitely living in times of the Kali Yuga. Maybe we're not. Who knows? But I think there's a pretty good chance that we are. Now, for those of you who are sitting there wondering what the hell I'm talking about, Kali Yuga, is that like, I don't know, some band or a wrestler or, that dude from the Temple of Doom, Kali Ma, Kali Ma. No, it's not that. It's actually a concept that came out from Hinduism. Good old Hindus. I love Hinduism. Hinduism, the religion that talks about UFOs, nuclear explosions, and space battles, straight out of that movie. What was that movie about space battles? They had wars in the stars. I don't know, I'm not a nerd, so I have no idea. Sorry. But there's some war stars going on, and that was talked about a long time before that movie was made. Make no mistake about it. Thousands of years ago, the Hindus talked about that, and I love Hinduism. And so looking into Kali Yuga, it really, really spoke to me. I was like, wow, what are they talking about with this Kali Yuga? Well, what is Kali Yuga? So pretty much in Hindu philosophy, you have what are called yugas. And yugas are different stages of eras of society, the planet. And you have, I'm not going to go over all the yugas, of course, but some people think that we are living in the Kali Yuga. And if you actually look into where we are in this cosmos, we are definitely in that vicinity of where we're supposed to be in Kali Yuga. So it's like we're either entering Kali Yuga or we're smack dab in the middle of Kali Yuga. And that's sort of been a debate. So, yeah, there's so much stuff to go over. And kind of the thing I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast was, I had this in my back pocket for a long time. I wanted to do an episode on Kali Yuga. I actually did one. And it sucked. It's just, I'm not a Hindu expert by any stretch of the imagination. And I just felt like an idiot when I was talking about it. And not that I don't look like an idiot when I'm talking about anything else, but I want to be at least a little bit prepared. And sort of these happenings that have been going on really over this last week kind of sparked something in me to say, hey, this might be time to, let's get into this Kali Yuga thing. Because there are other videos on YouTube about Kali Yuga. I tried watching as many as I could. It's just so convoluted. Nobody could agree on anything. Kali Yuga is not going to happen for another 40,000 years, and I don't know. But, yeah, I think that we are living in Kali Yuga, and let's go over exactly why I feel that way, and why in Hindu scripture it might actually support that as well. So where do I want to go here? How's everybody out there right now? The freaking heat. I don't know if you can hear my air conditioning. I have to have it on, especially with my beanie. But, I gotta change it up. I can't just keep wearing my Mack truck diesel. So, I'm the third eye messiah today. But anyway, it's... I think it's safe to say we're smack dab in the middle of Kali Yuga. That's my personal opinion. Look at what happened with Trump. Did you think that was going to happen? I remember my wife telling me, I'm just sitting on my couch, what I do best, and she comes walking in and goes, well, Trump's been shot. I'm like, what? Trump's been shot, and he's on camera doing this. And my first reaction to that was that real? And not like, oh, this was a false flag or something like that, but more along the lines of there are, AI generated images that are out there that look pretty goddamn real. I think there was a one with Post Malone. I don't know, is he a rapper or something? They have him in a Domino's pizza, like slugging pizza people. I'm looking at that going, what, that guy smoking bath salts? And I had to look into it further, and I realized it was AI, but it looked absolutely real. So that was my first thought, and then you watch the news, and no, Trump had an attempted assassination on him, and bullet grazed right by his ear, bloody ear, sticking his fist up. What was he saying? It was that fight, 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 I think. Would have been cooler if he was like, freedom! But, whatever. The guy must have been I don't know. How the heck... how the heck do you even have that approach after you get shot? I know some people may say, well, there's something fishy about that. But, Trump, he likes to take his Sudafed. Let's just put it that way. And, yeah. He might have some ice water in his veins. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to cast aspersions, but whatever. And good on him. He almost got capped in the head, and, he's out swinging. And, hey, I'm no fan of Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination. Regardless of what happened, I still think Trump is a narcissistic megalomaniac who doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself. But the guy still doesn't deserve to die. So anybody that is on that wagon of, oh my God, I can't believe he didn't die, you got to do some deep shadow work right there, because, come on. He's a freaking human being. And then you got Biden. And I know sometimes it's hard to think of him as a human being, but he is a human being as well. He's kind of very frail. Kind of almost looks like the Crypt Keeper. He likes his ice cream. But even if that happened to Biden, I don't like Biden either, for a multitude of reasons. That would be just as distraught if something like that happened to him. So it's just the insanity of all of it, though. The attempted Trump assassination, Biden being a doddering space cadet, even though he's supposedly the president of our United States. There's something very weird going on right now in not just society, but in our world altogether. And I think it might have something to do with this Kali Yuga thing. And I know I'm kind of getting into maybe a little bit of rants here and there, but there's just so much about Kali Yuga, and that was another reason why it was hard for me to really get going on this podcast. I didn't know really where to go with this, because so much information about this. I think it's best for me to say why I think we're in Kali Yuga, and if it wasn't clear by what I was demonstrating with Trump and Biden and all that good stuff. But let's play a little thought experiment here. I thought this would be a good way of showing you kind of the weird times we're living in. So this thought experiment is, I'm going to go, let's just say the year 2000 me, the year 2000. The year 2000 me is able to speak with 2024 me. And it might go something like this. Hey, 2004 Steve. This is 2000 Steve. Hey, 2004 Steve. It's Steve 2000. Leave it to a 13-year-old to try to have a cool name. Whatever. I did my best. And so, Steve 2000, is... He's saying hi. I don't know how this happened. Maybe some weird experiment at CERN happened and I'm able to see my past self. So, Steve 2000 is asking me what's up. And I say, hey, kid. Because he's calling me 2004 Steve, so I got to set him straight. And I go, hey, kid, call me Hippie Steve. Because, leave it to a 37-year-old burnout to try to look cool. So I'm going to knock myself too. I'm better than 13-year-old Steve, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. And And I mean, how do you converse with your 13-year-old self? What do you tell him? You know, do you go over the horrors of life? You know, get out of school now, kid. It's all a big scam. Go freaking move to, like, I don't know. Where can you move? I mean, you're 13, whatever. Anyway. So, Steve 2000 says, "Okay, hippie Steve, how have things gone these last 24 years?" I was pretty mature back then, so, you know. Steve 2000 continues, "Have we put a man on Mars? Do we have floating cars, like in the Jetsons? Have we finally discovered the lost city of Atlantis?" I was into that shit when I was a kid. I still am. And, you know, you kind of have to sit there. Hippie Steve has to sit there and think, what the hell do I tell this kid about what's going on in 2024? Because, you know, you got the year 2000. We just got past the, you know, millennium bullshit. And I don't know. You know, can't say it's gotten better. That's for sure. So, you know, me, hippie Steve, I'm thinking about it. What do I tell 13-year-old me about what is going on these last 24 years? Well, I say, well, Steve 2000, during these last 24 years, the following things have happened. Sorry, if you haven't been able to tell, I did write this down because, come on, I'm not going to be able to remember all this. You know? I mean, if I was able to, like, just spit this all out by memorization and, you know, I don't know, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be doing something completely different. Make no mistake about it. So this part is a little scripted. Sorry if you don't like it. We're trying something new here. So, you know, hippie Steve is explaining to Steve 2000 what's going on, what's been going on these last 24 years. And hippie Steve says the following. Yeah, you know that guy, Donald Trump, the orange guy with the weird hair? Well, he's a former president of these United States. You know, and it's looking, I don't even think I really knew who Donald Trump was back then, so he wasn't too impressed with that. But then, I really hit him with this. I say, you know Olympic gold medalist Bruce Jenner? You know? On a box of Wheaties, even though I didn't grow up in the 70s. I mean, you kind of knew who Bruce Jenner was. Kardashians weren't a big thing yet, but you kind of knew who Bruce Jenner was. So, Olympic gold medalist Bruce Jenner, well, you know what? He's now a woman named Caitlyn. I think that's his name. But he's a woman. Bruce is now a woman. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm serious. I'm not saying that that's, oh my God, it's so crazy. But, you know, back then, yeah. You know, can you imagine if you found out, like, Bruce Willis all of a sudden changed his name to, like, Marine? You know, or, I don't know, Mod? Be kind of weird, okay? I mean, I support whoever wants to do anything, but, you know, it's a culture shock from back in 2000. You know, we're much more hateful back then, okay? Give me a little bit of a break. You know, and, you know, you got Bruce Jenner turning into Caitlyn Jenner, and now she's got some big, juicy tits. You know? Don't forget that. I mean, not that I would, but... But, you know, I don't know if 13-year-old me would have really even been too flabbergasted about that, because, I mean, it wasn't like Bruce Jenner, I had a poster of him on my wall. It was just like, okay, it would be like finding out, like, Ross Perot turned into a chick, you know? It's like, who gives a shit? But make no mistake about it, because I'm about to lay a doozy on Steve 2000. And I say to Steve 2000, I say, here's the kicker. You know the legendary Bill Cosby? The guy who's had kids saying the darndest things? You know, the Jello guy? That. Yeah, he's a serial rapist and a hypocrite. Cosby. So just based off of those things, you can see how crazy things have gotten as far as just change in perception by all stretches of imagination. Obviously with Bruce Jenner, it was a positive thing. Donald Trump, I don't know where you're at on that one. I've already said my piece. And then you got Bill Cosby, who we all loved Bill Cosby back then. You know, he was on like every freaking channel all the time. And yeah, that was a crazy, crazy, crazy thing. So this is Hippie Steve's rendition of why I feel like we live in Kali Yuga. But of course, the Hindus have a list of characteristics that go into detail as far as if we're in Kali Yuga or not. So let's see what the Hindus have to say about whether we're in Kali Yuga. Let's take a look at this list. So here's the characteristics of if we're living in Kali Yuga or not. So one characteristic is materialism. People are more interested in worldly pleasures and less interested in spirituality. I mean, that goes without saying, you know. Sorry. Need a little bit of water there to wet my whistle. But yeah, you know, section I live in the Portland, Oregon area. I think we have like one of the lowest religious rates in the country, and you could tell by walking around some of these miserable people around here. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're nice people in Portland, but, you know, there's also, I don't know. I think there's some people who might worship cats and cigarettes and driving horribly, but they certainly don't worship any type of deity. I can assure you of that. Whatever. You know, that's Portland. And I wouldn't move anywhere else because guess what? Doesn't matter where I live. The trees are my God. The river is my God. Mount Hood is my God. So, you know, I didn't care for people down when I lived in Los Angeles, really. You know, some people. But, you know, I'm not a people person, if you haven't been able to tell that. So, the materialism is one characteristic based off of Hinduism, whether we're living in Kali Yuga or not. Another characteristic is sinful behavior. Ooh. People are more likely to engage in sinful behaviors without regret, and immoral practices are common. I mean, I know kind of sin can be a little bit, you know, I don't know, subjective, but I think there's some things that are crystal clear as far as what would be considered bad, i.e. sinful. You know, treating people bad, horrible bosses who like to fire people. I've had plenty of those. You know, people who really get off at, you know, just doing that, making people's lives miserable. Misery loves company. And God, I've seen that so much. And it's increased. It has not decreased. All these people that talk about, practice kindness. What was it, Ellen DeGeneres? Wasn't that her thing? And you found out she was freaking out of her damn mind. So, you know, don't buy into any of that. You know, I don't know. But that checks the box right there with sinful behavior and just being an asshole. Now here's one that really hits close to my heart, even though my heart's over here. Illness and disabilities. Mental illness. Oh, God, yes. Yeah, I can relate to mental illness. Physical illness. Oh, geez. And chronic diseases. Don't really have any chronic diseases. I mean, I do smoke the, bubonic chronic, but that's about it. So let me repeat that because I'm doing a little bit of freestyling here. Mental illnesses, physical illnesses, and chronic diseases are becoming more common, and the human lifespan is decreasing, which is a fact. So far, we're batting for 1,000, no question. What's doesn't end here, folks. It continues. So next is social issues. Kings are more likely to be thieves. And men are more likely to steal, lie, and use violence. Family ties are limited to marriage, and social classes are reduced to the lowest level. Now, there's a lot to break down here, but, kings are more likely to be thieves. I mean, that just goes without saying. I mean, Jesus. Men are more likely to steal, lie, and use violence. Now, let's go with the lie part. Maybe it's just a byproduct of the society we live in, but I know from personal experience that honesty is not necessarily the best policy all the time. I'm not saying be a lying, sack of you-know-what. But there are times where lying is actually beneficial. It is something that is for the betterment, and there's a lot of examples I could give, but I could understand that in other ways that are more, malicious, I guess. Stealing, just depends. It's a circumstantial situation. I mean, if you're stealing to feed your family and that's the only way you have to feed your family because there's no jobs out there, I'm sorry. I have no problem with that. But if you're like some freaking Bernie Madoff a-hole and, you're stealing when you don't have to and you're running away with millions of dollars, yeah, that person deserves to, have some horrible stuff happen to them. Now, violence. There's one I could completely agree with. The hippie thing is no gimmick, folks. I am a pacifist through and through. Violence should be the last ditch effort in the situation. Yeah. Just bottom line. Carry some pepper spray on you if you're going somewhere where you might run into some dangerous folks. And if you have to, spray them. Kick them in the freaking balls. And, get the hell out of there. But other than that, don't be going out starting fights and getting road rage and all that. It's just not necessary. And it does seem to be pretty prevalent, not only in this society, but all around the world, actually. And then you got family ties are limited to marriage, and social classes are reduced to the lowest. So the family ties thing, that was when I was kind of scratching my head on when I initially read this before I started the podcast. Family ties are limited to marriage. I think really what that's saying is we're sort of disconnected with community. And one thing that I've been, figuring out during my journey, developing my philosophy on, how do we better society, is we need to better our communities. Far too many of us are focused on, federal politics, obviously. State politics is a little bit more important, but local politics is the most important. And getting to know your neighbors, getting to know what's going on, helping your neighbors, that sort of thing. I think that's what it's talking about. If there is somebody who is more versed in Hindu philosophy, if I'm wrong on that, please tell me. But that's the best thing I was able to come up with, because I have nothing, for me, family is important. I have my wife, that's it. And if I lost her, I definitely wouldn't be doing a podcast right now. I'd be running out to the freaking woods, living on a mountain, living off of, dew and whatever the hell I could get, and you just would never see me again. No problem with that. I love my wife. Been together for 20 years, so she's... I'm not trying to get too personal here, but at first when I read that, I kind of took a little bit of... I don't know even what the right word would be, but I didn't like reading that at first, and then when I read it over again, I'm like, okay, I think I see it. So far, still batting 1,000. Now here's another good one: individualism. Oh, who's that lady from the 1950s or whatever, 1940s? Ayn Rand. Oh my God. What freaking just a nutcase speed freak, and developed this, what was it called? Objectivism? I'm an individual. Society's putting me down. Which I'm not saying that society's the greatest thing in the world, but just to look at it from an individual point of view, I don't know. You know, there's certain things that are important with being an individual, but you know, you have to, I think the saying goes, it takes a village. And, you know, you develop your individualism, but you put that as part of your community. This goes back to the, you know, the social issue thing. Actually, one thing I forgot with the social issue, I'm sorry, because I was so caught up on the family ties or limited marriage, was social classes are reduced to the lowest level, which goes without speaking. You know, I guess maybe that's why I kind of skipped it over. It was self-evident, but you know, there's middle class is dissipating. We either have a lower class or an upper class, and if you look into that, it never works. So there's that. But back to individualism, what they say is people are more centered on individualism, which can keep them in a constant state of survival. Now, the wording on this is a little bit, I don't want to say deceiving, but this was written 2,000 years ago, so that survival word means a little bit, it's a different meaning, I think, now than it was then. The constant state of survival is, to me, what rings true is we live in this thing called a hustle culture. You know, you got to get your hustle on. You got to get your side hustle on. You got to make that green, baby. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try making money, because obviously money, it makes the world go round. But I think that there are people out there, more people than not, that are just, you know, they're working constantly. And they're not spending time with their family. They're not spending time on themselves. They're just chasing this money. You know, you want to talk about what God is in today's society. I know people say the state is God or medical institutions are God, which there might be some truth to that, but money is God. It literally says, in God we trust on money. Make no mistake about it. Money is God in this society, and we're, not to get on a little offshoot here, but Karl Marx, and I'm not a Marxist by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the great things that Karl Marx came up with was this concept of wage slavery. And really what he meant was that, you know, lower class people were going to be put in such a position that all they can do is work. They have no other choice but to do the work and to keep working, and they're in such poverty that it's just work. Well, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And if you think that's not what's going on right now, you know, you need to look into things. You need to start talking to people, because, yeah, there's people out there, they have no lives. They work 16 hours a day at least, and so many people I know have 2 jobs at least, and, you know, they're trying to sell stuff online, and it's not a good thing, man. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't agree with everything that Marx talked about or wrote about, but that concept of wage slavery, he was 100% correct on. And, you know, broken clock is right twice a day, I guess. So enough of that. Here's a good one. I think this is the final one. Actually, might be my favorite one, all things considered. Rationalism. And here's what the Hindus say about rationalism. I mean, of course, this isn't directly from, you know, the whatever book in Hinduism this was written from, but this is the translation. People can become more rational and difficult to deal with. Who would have ever thunk, you know? I think I've said this before, like rational can be really irrational at times. And it is a problem. You know, people want to be right on things, and because there's a consensus out there, I am right because that's the consensus. Well, how many things in the past have been consensuses, that's the right word, that ended up being not only wrong, but dead fucking wrong? So that's, just the word rationalism right there, and that's a sign of Kali Yuga. That should tell you a lot about what we're going through right now. So all of these, this is the, I don't know of any great baseball players right now, but let's say this is the, I don't know. I want to say Babe Ruth, but that's so cliche. Barry Bonds. He was kind of, I don't know. You got Mark McGwire. He was just, if this if Hindus were baseball players, they'd be the greatest baseball players of all time as far as hitting went. So that's, sorry. I'm using my computer here, so that's where that little ding went. But that's the Hindu breakdown as far as showing why we're in Kali Yuga. It's looking like we're in Kali Yuga. I don't know. If you want to debate me on it, feel free. I don't care. But to me, it looks like we are in Kali Yuga. Now, maybe I got a little bit lost in the sauce of everything, but with Kali Yuga, it's the worst of the yugas. Obviously, with what I just laid out right there, it's obvious. But if I wasn't able to, convey that at the beginning, I do apologize. I just wanted to do my thought experiment with me talking to Steve 2000 and, I don't know. So I apologize if that really didn't connect. But, Kali Yuga is the worst yuga out of, it's the total of 4 yugas. And so we're on the 4th yuga, the final yuga. And, the bad news is it's safe bet to say we are in Kali Yuga. But the good news is the yuga that will immediately follow Kali Yuga is Krita Yuga, the best yuga, a golden age, if you will. Who knows when we'll start, but it does seem like we are entering into a new era of man. I don't know if people have been catching on to that, but there's a lot more people that are waking up right now, especially with this last thing that happened with Trump. I'm surprised how many people I'm seeing that are just like, yeah, that. I'm not going to get into all the conspiracy theories on that, but I'm not trying to have to convince people as much as I used to, and I'm not looking like a crazy person, even though there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it's not just that. There's a whole array of different things. I think right now it's easy to say more people are distrusting in the government than they ever have been since, I don't know. So that is encouraging. And, hopefully we're in the tail end of this Kali Yuga thing. Hopefully, I don't know, in the next 50 years. I'll be old as hell, but, hey, maybe tomorrow we'll get into this Krita Yuga. And, finally get out of this thing because it's... And I know people say, the 1800s were hard, and the pioneer days were hard, and the medieval times was hard. I don't know. I think Norm Macdonald had a great rap on that where he was like, yeah, but those people had lives. They had stories. What are our stories? Make a ham sandwich? That's our story right now. Those people had adventures. And I don't know. I don't want to deal with not showering all the time and dealing with crazy diseases, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being a pessimist here, but I don't think we're in the greatest of times right now as far as just standard of living, I think is a good way to put it. I don't want to get too much into what I do when I'm not doing this, but I do have to talk to a lot of people who are struggling. And it's getting hard out there. It's getting very hard. If you're in a situation of privilege, I don't look down on you on that. More power to you, but realize that there are more people than not that are really, really, really struggling right now. And we need to take that in consideration. And hopefully, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't think it's going to take anything. We just have to, get out of this galactic alignment with Kali Yuga and get into this other Yuga. And hopefully we'll be, I don't know, dressed in velvet or silk, drinking milk and honey, that sort of thing. But the way I want to end this is, if this is the end of Kali Yuga, the worst stage on this planet for society, for man, I think maybe the late, great Ronnie James Dio put it best when he said, "We'll know for the first time if we're evil or divine, we're the last in line." And I want to do a whole podcast about Johnny James Dio, because I think he was, in a way, kind of a Gnostic saint, a wonderful human being, and it was a wonderful lyric. I could quote Ronnie James Dio all day, but I think that's about it as far as everything I wanted to go through. I know I was rambling a little bit, but I just still pretty brand new to doing this. I think this is going to be like episode 9 or 10. So we've been doing this since January, and not doing this as much as I want to, but we just got to get in the groove, and things happen, and I'm feeling better, feeling much, much, much better, and I'm hoping I could stay on this horse for as long as I can. If I can, I think the sky's going to be the limit. Anybody out there who could help us out, spread the word. I don't know. I guess all you can do is spread the word. Of course, like, comment. Hasn't been many comments on my uploads. Please comment. I want to talk to you guys. I'm not out there to fight you. Even if you want to tell me to go F off and I'm crazy, I don't know what I'm talking about. Joe Biden's the greatest thing since sliced bread, or Donald Trump is the savior of this planet. Have at it. I don't care. Just converse with me. Let's try to find common ground, and like, subscribe, share. Just pass that message along. Once I start getting better equipment, I am going to be starting a Patreon, and I think that's going to be kind of where the rubber meets the road on this. So, feel privileged right now. Anybody who's watching this, all 3 of you, you are my first fans. You're in this hipster phase of going, yeah, hippie Steve, and then 10 years down the line I'll be famous, and you're like, oh, hippie Steve changed, man. Which, I don't know, maybe I will. Until then, that's about it. I'm glad to be doing these again, and like I said in my last podcast, I don't think these are going to be weekly podcasts. We might do one next week. My goal is to do these every other week for the time being, and then kind of building up from there. Once I get more confidence, BMAC, I know I haven't been paying attention to him too much, but that's is what it is. He's still busy eating his pork and beans, but he's got the confidence and He's got all the confidence he needs because of all that CIA training. Me, I'm just a bum. I'm a nobody. And nothing wrong with that. You know, I'm a Taoist to a certain degree. You know, he who is first is last, and he who is last sees everything. So, yeah. So, with that ado, God, it's been so long since I've done this, I'm kind of forgetting how I end it. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, anybody that's watching this, and I love you guys. And embrace the absurd, and free your mind, and your ass will follow. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.